after all that news. On Monday, the closest thing anyone came to a headline related to your favorite football franchise the following day was that Cameron Johnston, your punter, is giving up number 5. Good morning to you. Good Wednesday morning. I'm Dejan Kovacevic of DK Pittsburgh Sports. This is Daily Shot of Steelers. It comes your way bright and early every weekday if you're into hockey and or baseball. I also offer daily shots of Penguins and Pirates, other two teams in town that I cover. I hope you'll take the time to check those out as well. A day after breaking the news of his own trade himself on social media, Jalen Ramsay did what any self-respecting reporter would do on Tuesday, and that's to put together a nice little follow-up story. And he did that by announcing through pictures that Johnston was parting with number 5 for Ramsay to wear. Alas, that's as much as we know about how Ramsay's going to fit here, at least for now. But that's not going to stop me from attempting to put together some pieces as to how I feel he'll fit into this defense, into this secondary, and into this locker room as well. Into this defense. He is a special player. He has always been a special player. Now, he's on the wrong side of 30. He's not going to have the same, little extra edge that he would have had at different points in his career. He's going to have to work a little bit harder to make sure that he stays in NFL DB shape relative not to the age that he is, but to the age that he was. But my belief is that the Steelers are going to utilize this player, regardless of his position, as a starter, period. You remember the remark I shared with you that Keanu Benton made when I asked him in a one-on-one talk that we had at minicamp about what his position is going to be. Is he a nose tackle? Is he going to be this? Is he going to be that? He said, I'm a playmaker, and he smiled. And I'm thinking that's going to be what Ramsay is. If Ramsay can help you against a given opponent in the slot, you put him in the slot. If Ramsay can be a guy that for whatever reason happens to have a matchup on the outside, you figure that out. If Ramsay looks like he's got the wherewithal to process picking up safety in some big hurry, and that looks like that can help you more than anywhere else, he'll do that. But however many defensive snaps there are in a game, his own number should be exactly the same. Among Ramsay's countless skills really is his versatility. This isn't going to be teaching the old dog anything. This isn't going to be Patrick Peterson. You'll remember Pat P used to talk about all the time, like, yeah, I got to do this. Now I got to learn this. He wasn't complaining necessarily, but he was making sure that we were all aware of it. Whereas Ramsay's reputation is that he just eats that stuff up. How will he fit into the secondary? This one, oddly enough, is even more complicated than the first one, which is saying something considering the first one doesn't even give him a position. And what I mean by that is, yeah, when you think of Ramsay, you think of a playmaker, to borrow Benton's term again. You think of someone who just finds a way to be around the football, who flies to the football, who will go side to side in search of the football, even when it would appear that he is in no position to do anything about an extended play. He'll do that. It's one of the many things that's made him great. And I do mean great, not an overstated term, given his career. So the real adjustments in this category, the second one that I'm bringing up here, aren't on him. They're on the coaching staff. They're on Terrell Austin. They're on Mike Tomlin. They're on making sure that Ramsay is in the best possible position to make plays. If that means that he can still get to the backfield, and he's had a propensity for that over the years, not as much in the past couple, not when he was with Miami, then I don't want to hear that, well, this isn't something that the Steelers do anymore just because they haven't done it since Mike Hilton was here. If they have a guy who can contribute to the unpredictability of their defensive scheme in terms of pursuing or pressuring the quarterback, that's not something you're stuffing into your back pocket. That's got to get utilized. And so does everything that he can still do. Fortunately for the Steelers, the trade occurs well before training camp, a full training camp in which they can see what he can do, what he can't do maybe as well as he used to. But I absolutely don't want to see the Steelers start with some sort of tunnel vision about him, like, he's the guy we're just going to put on tight ends. I mean, he's going to erase Isaiah Likely or Mark Andrews from a game. No, man, if he can do anything, if he can still do anything, have him do anything. I'm talking about Jacksonville era Jalen Ramsey. And the last point that I was going to bring up was, how does he fit in the locker room? And the obvious answer to that is that we'd have no idea, because the locker room is a collection of people, of personalities, of very different people and personalities, and how they interact and how their chemicals collide and whatever. That's not something that even somebody in there could forecast. But he is known to be still very much a bombastic presence on and off the field. He will talk people's ears off on the field. He will talk people's ears off when he's seeing microphones and cameras. He is not the low-profile type. Now, different positions have different approaches to this sort of thing, and really, maybe this is unfair, but different levels of acceptability. If a quarterback does that on a regular basis, you're kind of like, dude, man, just pipe down, Just be the quarterback, be the steady hand. We don't need any of that other stuff. But on defense, I want attitude. I want mega attitude. That doesn't mean you get dumb and you take penalties and hurt the cause, but I want the other guys to know that my defense is on the field. I want the other guys to know that my defense is confident. And you'd better believe that when my guys make a play, I want everyone to be aware of it. If that means TJ Watt kicking the sky, great. If that means trash talk that doesn't get you a flag, that's fine too. You know what I don't want from my defense? Getting trampled, getting embarrassed, getting 299 yards shoved down their figurative throats in my arch rival stadium. When we come back, J1Q.
This segment of Daily Shot is brought to you by our good friends at Mike's Beer Bar. They're located on Federal Street, directly across from PNC Park. Mike has more than 500 beers on tap, including from more than 50 local breweries. Stop in and say hello. Tell Mike we sent you. Mike's Beer Bar.
Time now for today's J1Q, and I'm going to make a confession before I share it, and that's that I love when a question comes in that asks about something that had not even crossed my mind. And that's what Luke does today. He says, is it possible, DK, that the main target of this trade was Jonnu Smith, and that once talks started, the Steelers and Dolphins figured that they had some sort of Minkah Fitzpatrick, Jalen Ramsey combo, that this might make things work? We do know that Smith and Arthur Smith go way back, and that the Steelers needed another pass-catching threat. Luke, until either the managements in Pittsburgh or Miami speak to this subject, we're not going to know definitively. Let me start with that boring but necessary preface. In these first 48 hours since the trade, there has not been anything of the kind, and I haven't been told anything from within the Steelers. However, what I had been told was that the Steelers were discussing Jonnu Smith with the Dolphins as far back as 2 weeks ago. Now, does that mean that Jonnu Smith was, to go at your initial question here, the main target of this trade? Don't know. The only truly transparent component to everything related to this trade is that both teams did a spectacular job of keeping it silent. But Jonnu Smith's name came up. I'm going to graft on another piece that might or might not have something to do with this, but Arthur Smith had told me earlier in the offseason that he had intended to use Donald Parham as his second most targeted tight end. Now, just because nobody in Pittsburgh even had a chance to learn Parham's name before he was lost to the Achilles for the season doesn't mean that there weren't significant plans. Arthur had very much expected to throw to him. So, would Arthur's connection to Jonnu Smith have had something to do with this? There's no way it couldn't have. I mean, if you're Omar Khan and Mike Tomlin and Andy Weidel or whoever, and you're in that room and you're talking about Jonnu Smith, and you're not talking to the guy who had Jonnu Smith in both Nashville and Atlanta and brought him with him to Atlanta, then that just wouldn't be the case. On top of that, I have experience in covering trades and the composition of trades in all sports, all three of Pittsburgh sports, I should say, as to how they begin, how they build up, how they break down, how they get put back together. And the scenario that you lay out makes as much sense as anything that I can even fathom here, because I don't believe for a second that this was the Steelers' initiative to move Minkah out. I just don't. Now, I could find out that was the case, but right now I don't believe that. But it could be a situation where you had not one, but two players in Miami who very clearly wanted to get out to varying degrees and for varying reasons. So the Dolphins saw a way, theoretically here, that they could clear out two problems and bring in a guy with the credentials of Minkah, which is not easy to do, regardless of what kind of showing he's had over his last couple of seasons. So all I'm going to say here, Luke, is I think you might be warm on something there. I appreciate that question. I appreciate everybody listening to Daily Shot of Steelers. Don't forget, we have a double shot coming your way today at 4 p.m. Eastern. That's live on our YouTube channel. It's also on our app and website at DK Pittsburgh Sports. Hope you'll join us.